No.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Going to play the Let's Talk Autism Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy opening, but so I'm caught a little off guard. Good morning, Nancy. Unmute yourself because we're here with you.
Yeah. Good morning. This is our open.
This is our open, and we don't have time today because we're jamming things in today. We've got a big show here, and you can see we've got a very special guest who's got a really cool background. You're gonna. We tried to do a really cool background at one point, and then we let it go. But you're better at these things than we are, Jason. So Nancy and I we didn't have you on the schedule because this was Mother's Day weekend, but you reached out to me and said, Shannon, I got a big deal going on right now. So first of all, introduce yourself to everyone and tell us why we had to make time for you this morning.
Hey, Shannon. Hey, Nancy. Hey. Thanks for having me on at such late notice. I'm Jason Weissbrod. I'm the co-founder of Spectrum Laboratory, that is our logo. Our website is speclabs.org. We teach film, music, animation, and all different types of things with the neurodivergent and autistic youth. We have age ranges from 8 to 35, I think is our oldest student now.
Wow.
So we're kind of teaching all ages, but you can learn all about our program on our website at speclabs.org. But today I have a really special announcement. Last year we filmed our first really professional short film called Boys Don't Wear Dresses. And it's a film that is written by myself with one of my longtime students, a really great friend of mine, as well as a Spec Labs artist, Alani Shorin, who, when I first met Alani, went by the name of Steven. And Steven went through a transition for a long period, first coming out as gay, and then later on, while we were writing this script for this short film together, just told me that Steven was now wanted to be called Alani and was now transgender and wanted to live a more fulfilling life as her real self. So we wrote a film about it called Boys Don't Wear Dresses, and it's screening tomorrow night at the Translations Seattle Transgender Film Festival, which is the largest transgender film festival in the world. And because of what we're all dealing with being at home, it's going to be online, and they're making it available for anybody to see. So tickets are free. But I highly recommend that you guys support the festival. So there's a sliding scale ticket price. So you can pay 5, 10, 15, 20. But if you can't afford it, they're making it free as well. And that's a lot of information, but this is our poster that you guys are seeing. Boys Don't Wear Dresses, that the amazing Danny Bowman created, which you, Shannon, you know Danny. We all love Danny so much.
Yeah, we all love Danny.
We see some familiar faces there, poster. Jason.
What's that?
Yes.
We see some familiar faces there on that poster.
So like in our film, besides Alani, and me writing it, we then had to get together a whole crew. So we hired professional cinematographers and camera people, as well as a bunch of my students I hired and actually paid to work on the film, which is amazing, and the actors. So all the actors got paid. There's Spencer Hart, who is
Yep.
a longtime friend of your show.
Yeah.
And then Liv Brazil is on the right, which is another very interesting story because Liv, we all knew as Jack, and Jack has now transitioned into Liv. And this happened kind of while we were filming. So it was this very beautiful, all these beautiful magical things were happening during this filming. And then of course we got some amazing celebrity guests. We got Tom Kenny all the way there on the edge, who is the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Amazing.
To be a part of our film, which is amazing. And then the biggest dream come true. I mean, SpongeBob was already like a major dream come true for us. I've loved Tom Kenny like my whole life. I've been obsessed with Tom ever since he was on Mr. Show. But then Alani and I wrote the part of the stepmom with Alexandra Billings from Transparent in mind for the part. And we have an amazing casting director, Rose, who reached out to her and she said yes. And so we got Alexandra Billings from Transparent to play the lead character's stepmom. And our lead, Brandon Rodriguez from Spec Labs is in the middle there. He's the one holding up the Cinderella dress. And then Danny Bowman did a whole bunch of animations on the film. All these little animated characters you see were from Danny Bowman's creation. When some of our animators from Spec Labs, Faith Butterfield, Shane McCaskill, Bella DiOrio, also worked on the film, and Amos Stills. So we got our whole crew, our whole Spec Labs crew really bonded together over this movie. And I'm insanely proud of it. It turned out beautiful, and it's screening for the first time for people to see it tomorrow night.
Okay, where do we have to go to watch it?
So you can either search Translations, Seattle Transgender Film Festival online. There's no like easy link, but if you go to our Spectrum Laboratory Facebook page or go to speclabs.org, you'll be able to find the links to get tickets. Okay. But all you have to do is type in Translations, Seattle Transgender Film Fest. And we are screening tomorrow night at 6:15 p.m. during a short film block. So this is a short film. The short film block is from 6:15 to 7:45 p.m. So it's an hour and a half short film block. They didn't let me know when we're screening in that block. So you just have to get a ticket for it's called the Joy and Catharsis short film block. And that's at 15 p.m. tomorrow night.
I'm taking notes so that I will.
Yeah.
Now, and we have to make sure that we let people know that is 6:15 Pacific time.
Pacific time, yes, correct.
So if you're going to want to watch on the East Coast, you need to be tuning in at 9:15. At Central Time, 8:15, Mountain Time, 7:15. Because I know that's that time thing already has messed us up today once. So I just want to make sure that people know where to find it because, I got to be honest. So often, Jason, we talk about things on the show and like a film or something, and people are like, well, when can we see it? I don't live in Atwater Village, Los Angeles, where it's screening or wherever it is. And we say, well, and then it's like a year before they can watch it on some service. So this is it, you guys. Congratulations.
I mean, we'll have more screenings, but I mean, this is our first kind of time we're showing it to the world. So and anybody can watch it. I believe there's going to be captions for the hearing impaired and for I worked on it. I hope they figured it out and got it on there. So hopefully there's captions. There's captions for it so everybody can watch. And the other really cool surprise is I wanted to give a big shout out to Jill Hart, Spencer's mom, for getting us our amazing narrator. This is a very Cinderella-esque fairy tale type story. So it's for all ages. We're kind of took a PG approach to the topic of being an autistic transgender individual. So it's told through a narrative voice, like a fairy tale. We got Carol Kane to voice the narration on the film from Princess Bride and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And that was because of Jill Hart, who is friends with her. So thank you, Jill, I love you. And Carol was amazing. Tom Kenny was amazing. Alex Billings, all the celebrities that attached were like, it was like a meant to be thing. They were all just incredible. There was a reason they were a part of it. They all just had beautiful hearts. And then everybody else you see on screen is from Spec Labs, which is really awesome.
Absolutely amazing.
Our students are all over the movie.
Yeah, Jason, tell us a little bit more about the storyline. You told us the history.
Sure,
Tell us about the film.
So it really follows the story of Alon, this guy who's going to college. He's living with his stepmom. It follows the Cinderella story where he lost his father at a young age, and he's growing up with his stepmom. And at a young age, I don't want to give away too much, but he had a traumatic experience where he was told boys don't wear dresses. And so, as a literal brain that he is growing up, and he always thought that boys just don't do that, and he was not around that type of living environment. It wasn't acceptable. It wasn't for him. So it wasn't.
And this young man is on the spectrum?
This young man is on the spectrum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as he grows up, this film is kind of about a day where he comes to terms with the fact that maybe it is okay for boys to wear dresses, and maybe it's time for me to share my story, and it's time for me to tell, who I really feel like inside. And so it's and it really is based on and inspired by Alani Shorin, who I wrote that we did a mentorship together, and we just sat down and started writing. And it was the first scene that we started writing was between a professor and a student. And then, 2 years later, Tom Kenny is playing me in the movie as the professor for Alani, for Brandon, who's playing Alani in the movie. And it was truly a dream come true. So it's a kind of a day in the life following, this day at college for this student, meeting a friend and being experienced to a theater program at a college that kind of will change the course of this young autistic transgender individual's life.
And I didn't realize before, you started making this film and there were conversations about it that, obviously people who are on the autism spectrum are just like everybody else. There are folks that identify as being heterosexual. There are folks who identify as being everything on the rainbow of the LGBTQ, all the initials there, right? But I didn't realize the high prevalence in the autism community, and I've been told, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, that there is a higher prevalence of being transgender in the autism community. Is that true?
I can't say yes or no, but I definitely know that there are a lot of, I don't even know how you would say it, but confused or unspoken people within the autism community that may not know their gender identity or are struggling with it. But I think that I have noticed that there is a lot of gender confusion, and it's not talked about at all. It really isn't. And so one of the goals of our film, and that's really because of Alani and her parents, Linda and Len, who are unbelievable, about getting this out there so we can start a conversation. So if someone who is autistic watches this movie and then goes, you know what, I actually like wearing dresses, it might start that conversation. So that I think is why the movie was made. I don't know really statistics. I'm the director and writer, and I learned from Alani and Linda and other people I know who are autistic and transgender. And I think there is there are quite a lot of people who are either gay or transgender or queer or fall into that LGBTQIA category that don't feel like they have a voice to really express that. So
and it's important that we give everybody gets a voice. Everybody gets a say. And I think for parents watching this film may help them to understand, because I think that anytime that your child is having trouble conveying who they are to you, right, for whatever reason, that's difficult for the parent. Because it's difficult for us because we want our child to be able to communicate, and it's difficult for us because it's what we always hoped we would have is a child who can communicate with us. But it's when it's these kinds of issues, there may be parents out there who really are struggling and not knowing what's going on with their kiddo, and maybe this will help them too, Jason. Get a little more acceptance, a little bit more knowledge. Knowing you guys and the people involved, I would guess that there's a fair amount of humor in it as well.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted feel. There's a lot of stuff out there on autism, transgender that are very like for the adult world and this is more, like my little 6-year-old niece is in the film, and it's a very like, you know, it's and one of our 9-year-old autistic students plays a young version of Alon in it. So it's a very family-friendly way of introducing these topics, and also like making it more of a norm. Like these stories should be Disney fantasy stories told, and it shouldn't be taboo. It shouldn't be controversial. It should just be.
Absolutely. But I think our community has struggled to talk about sexuality, period. You know, and sexuality and how you identify, those are two entirely different things. I don't think we've really forayed into there. So I'm so proud of you that you're going there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of interesting conversations off of this film, I'm sure. Hopefully,
Yes.
hopefully it can help bring some families together over some of these topics that maybe they haven't been really, you know, comfortable to talk about.
Yes. So tomorrow night, Saturday, 6:15 Pacific time, y'all.
Yes.
And tell us again, translations.
Yeah, it's called the Translations. This is the Seattle Transgender Film Festival. And like I said, tickets are on a sliding scale. Pay whatever you can, whether it's you can't give anything or you can give a lot. And also, if for Spectrum Laboratory at our website, speclabs.org, you can contact us, you can talk to us, you can write us on there, you can find out the information on our Facebook page. And last little plug, we have an amazing digital storytelling camp coming up this summer where we're offering it to anybody in the United States between the ages of 8 and 22. We're in contract with the VSA, the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. They're helping us out, helping with scholarshiping some students for this and helping us get this thing started. So if anybody is interested in films, music, animation, want to be a part of the Spectrum Laboratory team, we're actually expanding now because of this whole crazy world we're living in right now. It's kind of forced us into doing this, but it could be a good thing because now maybe we can reach people of other parts of the United States and eventually all around the world because of doing things online like this. So.
And when does that start, Jason?
We're actually starting right away. We're going right into it. So you can enroll right now online on speclabs.org /camp. It's our digital storytelling camp. It's under the classes section. And really anybody can sign up. Because even if you aren't 8 to 22, we're going to open it up to later, older than 22, like in September, October. So really anybody can join and be a part. And
is it like an independent study, or are you grouped with people in your age range? How does that work?
You're going to have each student will be paired with another student online with one mentor, and the mentor, like myself, will probably have a shadow or an assistant. And we're going to do 5 different 90-minute mentorship sessions where they're going to get to create their own little video about transforming themselves into their better, a magical being. So whether it's not, you know, the example I always use is like Peter Parker was at home, got bit by a spider, you know, turned into Spider-Man and help save the world. So we're going to help our students figure out their voice, what their passion is, and how to transform their passion into like a superhero, you know, magical self of them. So if anybody out there is interested, you can come to our website and check out we'll be running it for months and months, this digital storytelling camp online.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you're up to some really great things. You certainly haven't let this pandemic slow you down, have you?
We can. I gotta say, upbeat and positive. I can't just sit around. I'll
right.
So I just gotta keep busy and try to bring some positivity into this time. So that's.
I love that it's forced you to do what really you needed to do all along. Which I think you were going to get to.
People are emailing us from, you know, wherever, Jacksonville, and being like, "Do you have this here?" So now we actually have the
now you do
built, and now we do. So
now you do, because the universe said, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to." And look, you know, I'm all about, let's take whatever positives we can. And if that's one of the positives, I'm good with that. Because now you are going to reach more people, and it's just a thing where you're just going to have to make the time to, and that you could do it. It was just inconvenient. And now it's the only game in town. So I'm proud of you that you're doing it.
Do it, but it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, but I know you guys, if anybody can do it, you guys can do it. We're so proud to know you. I saw that Garth also did the music on it. You guys are so talented. You know, since you're here, I'm going to make a brief announcement, but Traven, let me know as soon as our next guest is here, because we're already over. But I'm so proud of this, that we commissioned Spec Labs to do new music for Autism Live. So you're going to see, we were going to debut it already, but we haven't had a chance to.
Yeah.
You're going to see new music coming in, being used on Autism Live, and we commissioned Spec Labs and their students to make that music for us. I am so proud of that. And that we had the opportunity to do that before this whole mess started. And we're really excited about what you guys made for us.
Well, great. Yeah. That's another thing. Garth and his whole music team. Garth is like the co-founder of Special Laboratory. We have a bromance going on, Garth and I. Garth's music, for this film, a lot of the same people worked on the music for years. Lucas Zaluski and Atticus J. Cowger and Sean McRae. And they all, so a lot of the music in Spectrum Laboratory, Garth was, of course, the conductor and the composer of it all. But we got all of our students, a bunch of our students, to be a part of the music as well. There's a big choral singing part where we got a bunch of our students to sing, and with Spencer and Atticus Baldwin and Abby Romeo, and it's fun. We just tried to really corral the whole team together for this movie. Boys Don't Wear Dresses, and we couldn't be prouder of it. And getting into this film, the last thing I'll say is getting into this Translation Seattle Transgender Film Fest is kind of like really a dream come true, because that's the exact audience. That's the film festival circuit is impossible. It's so hard to get into. Just to get into any film fest, and to get into this one means a lot to us. So thank you for taking the time to share that. Really hope you guys watch the movie. Please be in touch with us. Alani and her parents, Linda and Len, would really want to start conversations. So please go to speclabs.org and send us an email if you saw the movie. Write to us. Let us know your thoughts. We'll continue a conversation, and we all just
let's start a watch party. Let's make a watch party.
There's a watch party online too for this.
Cool.
So when you go to the website for translations, they have like a Facebook watch party or something like that for the film. So I'll be there.
Wonderful. Jason, thank you so much for coming and telling us about it, so that we can know. I'm going to be watching tomorrow, and hopefully Nancy and everybody else will have the opportunity to do that too. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you, Jason.
Can't wait to share with the world. Thank you so much.
Give our love to everybody.
Fitting me into your schedule. Mwah, mwah.
Bye-bye.
Mwah, mwah. All right, take care.
Take care.
And Nancy and I are not going to miss a beat, because our next guest, we didn't even talk about how you guys could connect with us. Hopefully you guys know, but our next guest is already in the waiting room. Traven, if you could let her in. We like to feature on the show. Usually it's on Thursdays. We do Ask an Autism Expert. And I know, Nancy, you're not always here with us when we do that. But we ask, and generally we bring in a board certified behavior analyst, and we ask them a couple of questions that are of a genre that, it's like we take a bunch of questions that ask the same thing and sort of put them all together. Does that make sense? Or does that sound
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So we have joining us today Hitomi Wada, who has been on the show before. Hitomi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you guys?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So nice to see you guys' faces.
Coming to us from the comfort of your bedroom.
That's amazing. That sounds very comfortable.
Yeah. I see you in the same position.
Yes.
And Hitomi, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and where you do it.
Sure. So I am a clinical manager designee at our San Mateo location in California. And I am basically in charge of just supporting all of the clinical teams. That includes other supervisors at the centers, therapist liaisons, and behavior technicians in the San Mateo Center.
Very cool. And so Hitomi, we rearranged your schedule 18 times. So I'm glad you're finally here with us. The questions that we've got for you are predetermined. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw the first one at you. How can I get my child to play with more than just one kind of toy?
Sure. So I think the first thing is the motivation is really key in teaching any of our learners with any skills, and especially with play, right? Kids have their own agenda when they want to play with certain toys. So really starting with what they're currently playing with and then expanding from there, I feel like would be the most best way, effective way to teach our learners. So for example, I think the common challenge with our learners is, if they are really into Paw Patrol or some TV show and characters, it's really hard to expand from there. But if you can find things like puzzles or figurine toys, or even a board game that's within that theme, I think the learner is more likely to kind of expand and be more interested or more willing to try something new. I don't see Shannon anymore. Is she still?
I am still there.
Oh,
I just wanted to make more room. And
Gotcha.
I of course did not send the questions to Nancy, so I was feeling bad and I was going to text her one of the questions for her to ask.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So
Hitomi, I have a question. How do we know when the child is just stimming with a toy and doing repetitive behaviors as opposed to playing with the toy? And can we expand, even if they are doing repetitive behaviors, can we expand those to play?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes trying to find a context, the right context where this stimming or repetitive behavior can be more appropriate, I think would be the best approach. So for example, if the repetitive behavior, we can find a toy where it's meant to be, flapped or spun, I think that can make it a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
think of an example.
Like playing with a train or a truck with the wheels.
Sure. So that's a great example. So if the learner is spinning the wheel multiple times when we want them to kind of roll the toy, if we can find like a pinwheel or something where the toy is actually meant to be spun, and in having the learner engage with that in the moment, and then instructing them to roll the train, and just making sure that we're encouraging them to spin the pinwheel rather than the train, I think would probably be the best way. Again, making the behavior and putting it in a context that's more appropriate, I think would be best.
Wonderful. Our next question is, how can I get my child to stay in bed? Something that we all worry about and try to make happen.
For sure. And so this question, I think it's really difficult to answer, because I think it really depends on each client and what their needs are, what their motivation is, and how often, things like that. So my recommendation is just go straight to your BCBA, your supervisor, and really talking about the challenges in detail. And then they can really consult with you, but also getting other team members involved. Ruling out medical considerations is number one key here as well, and just making sure that the learner is not experiencing something internal where we can't really see. I think that's also critical in addressing this concern.
Wonderful. And our last question, I want my child to talk, but my ABA team is recommending PECS or an iPad for my 4-year-old. Does that mean that he will never speak, and are they giving up?
Yes. So that, I think this is a very common concern with a lot of our parents who have children that's not vocally speaking. But I'm sure a lot of parents have heard BCBA say there's abundance of research. Research shows that the PECS using pictures to supplement their communication actually encourages vocal communication in the future. And so I think to reframe this, we're not saying that the pictures are going to replace their vocal communication. It's meant to supplement. It's meant to be as a cue and support for the learner to engage in communication.
Wonderful. Hitomi, thank you so much for answering our questions and being here with us. I don't know if you're willing. I have a viewer has written in a question, and I know that wasn't, we didn't send that to you, but are you willing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. They want to know, how can I get my adult autistic son to wear a mask? Completely refusing.
Very challenging for a lot of us at this time.
Oh, I can only imagine.
The sensory, lots of sensory issues with our kiddos with the mask.
Sure. And again, kind of going back to the motivation is really key here. And some learners are not going to be motivated by the explanation of, well, if you don't wear a mask, there's a chance you're going to get sick. That's just a more abstract concept to grasp. So one idea that I would have is making the mask more appealing. So if we can make it more specific to that learner, whether it's their favorite color, it's got their favorite character on it, you know, I encourage the families to get your child or adult more involved. You know, pull up options on your phone and say, which one do you want, so that they can be part of the process of selecting the mask as well. As far as the sensory goes, you know, again, we don't want to put that high expectation of individuals to put on that mask overnight, right? It takes some time. So create small goals, right? We just want them to wear around their wrist. Maybe we just want them to hook it around the ear, take it off right away. Start small and celebrate those things in a really big way, because that's a big, big achievement. But if we can do that every day, maybe 3 times throughout the day, consistently, and then make sure you have that big, big reinforcer, right? Whatever motivates them, deliver it right after. Maybe we can make some progress for them to at least just put the whole thing on, or maybe even wear it for 5 minutes of the day.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, because I know I'm a sensory person, but I'm not on the spectrum. And I know how, like, the first day that I put one on, I had it on 30 seconds and I was like, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
This is not going to work out. I'm not going to be able to do this. And now I'm able to wear it for like a good solid 15 minutes. And I have friends that are, nurses and administrators who work in hospitals. And I've said to them, how did you, and they said, it really, after a time, it's just like, think about wearing your glasses, how hard it was to wear your glasses. And now your glasses, you don't notice when you have them on. Right. And that they honestly don't realize that they've got their mask on after 8 hours, because they are so used to it. So for sensory people, I agree with you, like working up to it, man, working up to it. Okay. I'm about 15 minutes now that I can do, but I did not think I was going to make it that far. So Hitomi, you are so amazing. And thank you for being so flexible with us and answering all of our questions. We appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
Yes, of course. Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Bye, Hitomi.
Bye-bye. Wonderful. So right. Isn't she delightful?
She's delightful. Yeah. And, I know a lot of people are having issues with that mask situation. So that's good to know her.
I got to tell you too, I had an allergic reaction, which is part of the reason why I'm having eye issues and, everything under the sun. So some of it is sensory in terms of just feeling like, I got to breathe through this thing. But it's also important to know what materials you're putting up against somebody's face. There's a lot of things to this.
Yeah.
But on a previous show, we talked about the fact, and I don't know whether it was Dr. Grampiche or somebody else who talked about the fact that, some of the masks have that filter in them, that N95 filter.
Right.
And that helps to filter out germs, so that if you're the person breathing, it's filtering out the germs. But that's not what's being required in most places. Unless you're working in a hospital, what they want you to do is to wear a mask, not to filter out germs, but to prevent you from having particulate go out. So who was it that was showing us the other day that they had one made out of a bathing suit material, and that you can have something very soft, or the bandanas, all of those are fine, because even as I'm talking right now, I'm somebody who over articulates, but there was just a spray that went on the computer. And that's what they're wanting people to cut down on, is talking and having their spit fly out. So don't feel like you have to have one of those ones that has the metal thing on the nose, because I had a total reaction to that. But I just want to say too, we have Nikki saying good morning. We had somebody who wrote in, and I got to stop to address this, Nancy. I don't know if you can see it. A gentleman wrote in and said, I have AS. In my younger days, I was mistaken for being gay. It was hard to ask a girl for a date. Romance comes hard for people on the spectrum, but I am living proof that it is not impossible. I am married for a second time. So there you go. And I really loved hearing that. Raquel says hello, and somebody sent us their song. I will listen to that later. They're saying hello from Ireland, from Northern Ireland. We love that. Somebody wrote in and said, I can't get my son to understand why we need masks to go out. He won't wear one and doesn't understand why his favorite places are closed, worried. When they reopen, how to get him to wear a mask or a hat or a shield. Nothing is working.
I had those same challenges. It's been very difficult for Wyatt to understand why school isn't open, why he can't go to stores. We have tried to tell him it's because of a virus, because of a sickness, but he doesn't understand why this is lasting so long.
Yeah, well, and so often when our kids and our adults on the autism spectrum don't understand something, I always go, do we understand it? I mean, this is hard for me to understand, like, when is this going to end? And like, what's happening? Like, I don't think there's an adult that I know that completely understands everything that's happening. So what I want to bring up is to appreciate the reality of their feelings. I mean, Nancy, it reminds me of when your beloved husband passed away.
Right.
And so much of what we were all feeling, but we're adults, so we don't say it, right? But Wyatt would say, where is he?
Right. When is he coming back?
When is he coming back?
Right. And I don't want him to go to heaven was his constant phrase.
Which, I gotta be honest, like, I was feeling all those same things.
Right. So was
I was like wanting to know where. I was there with you, and I was like, so, I have all my beliefs, right? But I don't know 100% for sure where the soul goes when it passes away.
Right. And it's so hard to explain that to a child. And this concept of the virus is very abstract and very hard for our kids. And beyond that, I mean, we're like, how do we get them to understand? We don't even understand. So I just want to say to everybody, maybe that's not the task, because it's very hard to explain something that's unexplainable, right? We're setting ourselves up for failure. I think instead, if we focus on making whatever is happening right now less anxious, so we can distract, right? And we can do that in a very healthy way by finding things that are very rewarding that are happening now. Even though they can't go to their favorite place, find something that you can only do right now. Like, is there something that they didn't get the opportunity to do? Like something that, they were saying, I'd really like to do this, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have time in our busy schedules. Or make something new up. I have the family that we talked about this a couple of weeks ago in the first week of all this, and they were saying, I don't know what I'm going to do because I live in an apartment and we can't go to the park. The parks are closed. They live in New York City. And they were saying, and my kid is manding for grass. And one of our one of our experts said, make one of the rooms in your apartment a park. And they ordered like the stuff that, it's not AstroTurf, but it's, so it's like grass, rolled it out on a mat on the floor, like a grass mat, and turned the living room into the park for this time being, and made a paper tree and did all this stuff. There are ways, if we're willing to accept what is, right? There are ways that we can make this reinforcing. It's individual to the kid, or to the adult. But I think trying to solve how to get them to understand it, I think, is an uphill climb. Right. And instead, I would address the feeling and say, I know it's frustrating. And I know it's frustrating. I know that you're upset. I know that you would like to go to the school, but we can't, right? Just like you had to say, I know you want daddy to come back and he can't. Right. Right. And like, but how can you explain that? You can't. Right. So you have to do something else and say, well, now we're going to go and we're going to paint something
in daddy's memory, right? Well, now, so, we can't go to your favorite restaurant. So instead, let's make your favorite meal. And it isn't going to be perfect. And they're not going to like it. But they will survive it, and it will help them in the end to be more flexible.
Right.
So,
We keep telling Wyatt he's learning to be flexible. And, he's like, what's flexible? And I'm like, it's taking things easy.
yeah. And rewarding them for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a skill that will be with them for the rest of their lives. We didn't choose this. We didn't want this, but we're here. So we might as well make the most of it and help them to gain a new skill. Okay, we have another question, because our guests, I'm going to be honest, we have this wonderful mom and son duo that we were going to have on, and I'm hoping that they're still going to show up. But it's a young man who's on the autism spectrum, and he's a singer. His name is Reid Soria. And he and his mom, Jo, were going to be on with Nancy and I, because we're trying to wind up our Mother's Day week. And so we were hoping to have them here and have Reid sing something. But they're on a different time zone. And the first thing when I got into my office this morning and opened up my computer was an email from Reid saying, I don't understand why you weren't there. We were there at 8:30 in the morning and you weren't there, because he's on Central Time. And so I had to send an email and say, no, you subtracted when you needed to add. We need to talk to you at 12:30. And so your time. And so I don't see them here. So they may or may not show up.
I hope they can make it, but we'll reschedule them if they don't.
Yes, we will. But in the meantime, until such time that they show up, I'm going to continue to address some of the questions with you, Nancy, that are here. So somebody wants to know, it just skipped for me. Sorry. How to make my child motivated for his studies. He's 6 years old, mild autistic. They just emailed. I'm going to ask, can they get on now? Hang on. So how to get somebody motivated to do their studies. Nancy, how do you get Wyatt motivated?
Well, he tends to like school and like the structure of it. So I think this is a much younger child, a 6-year-old. Once again, it's about making learning fun and making a reward for learning. So I would suggest figuring out a reward system for the child to learn and rewarding him upon that learning. Whatever their favorite things are, think of ways to make that possible. We do it with tiny non-dairy chocolates. We put Wyatt on a timer, and when he's successfully gotten through all his timers, he gets a small little square of chocolate. So the way we might adjust that for learning is when he's done his schoolwork, which everything's online now, when he successfully completed his schoolwork, we would give him that little thing of chocolate, which is highly motivating for my son. So whatever you can think of that is highly motivating, be it an activity, sometimes people don't like doing food rewards, but a game, a favorite toy. In the case of a 6-year-old, I would use that at the end of a successful session of learning.
One of my favorite doctors, BCBA's PhD, shared with me what she does with her children. She decided when her kids were little, she thought about it, and she was like, how am I going to make doing schoolwork reinforcing? Because she said, I just didn't want to have the battle. Right. And so when her kids were little, and I count 6 as little, right? What she did was she loved Kool-Aid as a kid. Her kids hadn't had Kool-Aid. They'd never had Kool-Aid. And and even if your kid has had Kool-Aid before, this is easy to do because every day is a new opportunity. And she bought a pitcher that was like a clear pitcher. It could be the Kool-Aid pitcher or another one, but she bought a clear pitcher. And she bought Kool-Aid, and Kool-Aid, if you add your own sugar, is like 10 cents a package. I'm not saying that it's necessarily good for you. This is not a commercial for Kool-Aid, but if what you want is for your kid to do your schoolwork, I'm telling you, she did this and it worked like a charm. every day that her kids would come home from school, she would have that pitcher of Kool-Aid and it would sit on the dining room table where they sat to do their homework. And while they were sitting there doing their homework and working, you couldn't just be sitting at the table, you had to be working, you could drink Kool-Aid. And you could drink as much Kool-Aid as you wanted. She only made one pitcher, and when the pitcher was gone, the pitcher was gone, but you could have as much Kool-Aid as you wanted. And she never, ever, ever gave Kool-Aid any other time than during homework. And her kids, who are now older, they come home, take the backpack off, and they are at the table and do their homework, drink their Kool-Aid, and they are happy.
Great.
Now,
so that's great. That's a positive reward system that works for her. And we can think of those things. And like I said, it doesn't have to be food. It can be a favorite toy.
And it doesn't have to be Kool-Aid. It could be anything, but it's got to be something that's really reinforcing is the key. And it can't just, in her case, she had an assumption. I liked Kool-Aid when I was a kid, so I think my kids will like it. Now, if she had done it and it didn't work, then it was because not because it doesn't work, but because the Kool-Aid wasn't reinforcing enough to her kids. It turned out, sugar water for her kids was, because that's what it is. It's colored sugar water. I would tell you that if you have a kid who is sensitive to artificial food colors or sugar, don't use Kool-Aid, but use something else. But whatever you use, don't use it for anything else. If it's actually working to get your kid to the table to do the thing, don't go, oh, well, now I'll use it for bath time too. Don't do that. Keep it special for that one thing. A lot of times parents make the mistake of saying, oh, well, I'm going to do iPad time as the reward for the homework. But then that gets muddy because you're going to end up using the iPad time for other things. Pick something that it's just for that thing. And that can be a really exciting thing. Okay, so the person who was writing in about the mask says he won't wear a mask. He isn't understanding. Okay, we already talked about that. Oh, why favorite places are closed and his partial verbal. What you were recommending to encourage wearing a mask. I did address his feelings. He is truly heartbroken. Just needs suggestion to help understand that his favorite might be open soon. And that he will be required to wear a mask. Well, your dining room table in your living room can become all kinds of things. It can become the waiting room at a doctor's office. It can become, the TSA screening place where you practice doing that. And so maybe, I don't know for his level of patience, but maybe if you make a calendar and say, we're hoping that on this day, the restaurant will be reopened, but they're only going to let us come in with a mask. So we have to practice. And then make your living room or your dining room the restaurant and serve similar things to what you serve there. And start by, like she said, having the mask hang on one ear. And then start wearing it for just, because when you sit down at a restaurant, you only have to have the mask on when you come in, and then they're allowing you to take it off because otherwise, how can you eat? But just have him practicing those little increments in your house. Will that work? And I'm waiting to see if she writes us back to tell us. So Nancy, I got to ask you, and I did write to the Sorias and say, can you join us now? But I'm not seeing them join, so I don't know what's happening. But Nancy, Sunday is Mother's Day. Mother's Day. And so I'm saying happy Mother's Day to you.
Happy Mother's Day to you too, Shannon.
It's a weird Mother's Day. I don't think anybody's going to brunch.
No, it's going to be very different from our Mother's Day of times past.
So do you have any plans?
Well, my brother and his wife are going to come over and do social distancing. They'll be safe with us. And Wyatt has been apparently working on some things when I'm not out in the kitchen living room area with him. I know there's some surprises planned that I have a feeling involve some sort of art project. So I know he's preparing some special things, and we'll probably cook a special meal. I got a great recipe for non-dairy gluten-free eggplant parmesan that I'm waiting to try. I did a cauliflower casserole that was gluten-free, dairy-free. We should do a show sharing some recipes soon, because
we absolutely should do that.
Yeah, I know you have many recipes that are gluten-free, dairy-free.
Yeah, well, ever since we had Anita on a week ago,
right.
I have been vegan.
You've been vegan? Congratulations. I'm impressed.
Can't you tell in my skin? My skin feels better.
You look great.
Well, I don't look great, but my skin feels better, which is a good thing. It's been interesting. And I've allowed myself to be a little transitional this week in terms of not, I'm 100% vegan. It hasn't been that, but when she broke the news to me last week that I couldn't use most of the vegan cheese, that's when I was like, what?
Right.
So I have allowed myself some vegan cheese because I bought all this stuff and I'm not like her. I can't just throw it away. So I have had some vegan cheese. So in that respect, I haven't been 100% in terms of what Anita had asked for. And I have seen my blood sugar go down a little bit. It needs to go down a lot more. So we'll see how that goes. What's interesting is that in an effort to, one of my favorite things about this isolation, the great isolation, as we're calling it, is that my family and I almost never sit down to eat a meal together. Almost never in the time, because nobody's like the same three people aren't home, but we also eat three different things. So a lot of times I'll cook for my son and my husband is either not home or he eats at a different time or he's eating at the same time as us, but he's eating something else because he's not gluten-free. He eats red meat. I don't do that. So when we started with the isolation and all of us were home every night at the same time for dinner, I started just making these big dishes and my husband started eating them. So we were all eating the same thing every night for dinner, which was crazy. And when I went vegan, I was like, oh no, that's going to mess with that. And then I went, you know what, let's make it not mess with it. And I told the boys, I said, you can eat as much meat as you want that's reasonable, right, for breakfast and lunch, but every night we're going to have a vegan dinner together. And everybody just has to be, prepared for that. And we're all going to sit down and have a vegan dinner together. That's been interesting. We did make, by the way, there was a recipe that Anita had given me that's in her book. That's carrot hot dogs. You take carrots and you marinate them for over 24 hours, and then you grill them, and they look just like hot dogs. And you put them in the bun and you put all the fixings on top of them, but they're carrot hot dogs. So we had to get all the ingredients because, we had to have the gluten-free buns. We had to have the gluten-free soy sauce. We had to have the organic carrots, right? And just to get all three things. Hot dogs the other night. And so it was amazing to me because guess who loved them and guess who was like, not who I would think. My husband, who will not eat a vegetable on his own, I don't think has ever eaten a vegetable where he was like, I know I'm going to eat or order a vegetable. I don't think that's ever happened in his life. He loved them. He thought they were great. He was like, these are fabulous. Right. These are wonderful. Jem was like, Jem ate them, but he didn't, come back for seconds. Jim came back for seconds on the carrot hot dogs. That's pretty amazing. Jem, it reminded him how much he loves hot dogs and he hadn't had hot dogs in a while. So then the next day for lunch, he had regular hot dogs.
Real hot dogs.
Because Jem doesn't eat hot dogs a lot. Right. So, I don't think hot dogs are necessarily his favorite thing. So he was like, the carrot hot dogs were okay. But then he ate I guess we do occasionally have beef hot dogs, but usually we have chicken or turkey hot dogs. But he ate hot dogs the next day, real hot dogs. But mostly the dishes have been really good. Not only have they been vegan, they've been oil-free.
Right. I know she doesn't use oils. So that would be a challenge for me because olive oil and almond oil are a staple at my house. So I don't know how I would adjust to that.
Oh, mine too. And I'm discovering that, part of the reason, the lion's share of the calories that I eat are olive oil.
Right.
That is my biggest calorie thing. And it's my biggest source of fat. So that's been interesting, but I found that it's really not hard and it really doesn't take away from the flavor. I'm trying to think what all we had. One of the things that we had the other night were enchiladas. They were
Vegan enchiladas?
vegan enchiladas.
How did you make those?
So we made a tofu. It was not eggs. It was onions and tofu and these wonderful peppers that I'm getting from my imperfect produce delivery that are really mild and sweet. And I'm trying to think what else. I think there was some zucchini in the mix too. And then a green enchilada sauce that was completely vegan and had no oil in it. And then rolled it in the corn tortillas and baked it with more enchilada sauce on the top. It was really good. Oh, beans. Beans were the other things that were in it. It was tofu and black beans.
Right.
And we did it with a green enchilada sauce. I don't know how it would be with a red, but I would guess really good. But it was really good. It was really good. We put a little bit of the vegan cheese on the top. But that was pretty good. I've made pad thai, vegan pad thai. They loved that. And we had like a goulash. I've been giving them a lot of noodles and things along with it. And I'm slowly rolling back on that so that it'll be less carb.
Right.
But everybody is eating well. My husband has not keeled over and has not run screaming from the building.
It's amazing how you can adjust. You know, Wyatt's on the keto diet.
Right.
Which is very helpful, they say, for seizures, and he has epilepsy. In fact, we went to his neurologist last week, and they've suggested doing another MRI and another CAT scan for him just to see where his epilepsy stands. But for those of you that have kids with epilepsy or that have had seizures, I highly recommend the keto diet. It seems to be helping. I mean, he hasn't had any seizures since he's only had 2 in his life. But once you have more than one, they consider you an epileptic, I suppose. So he's still on seizure medication, but they're talking about weaning him off of that. But the keto diet has been really good for him. He's lost 25 pounds total.
He looks like and it was right when he like had a growth spurt too. And
right.
And he used to have such a baby face.
Right.
Why had a baby face for so long? And then all at the same time, when you did the keto, he lost the 25 pounds, he gained a few inches, and he just all of a sudden became this tall, skinny young man.
Right. Right.
It's crazy how the change.
I know.
Yeah. He just looks like a totally different, he looks like a young man now.
Yeah.
All the boy, not fat, but all the boy padding is gone.
Baby fat. Yeah.
Yeah. The baby fat. It's all gone. Anyway, we are like about to be out of time here, but
tell us what you've got coming on next week, Shannon. Do you have any idea?
Well, I know that on Tuesday we have an amazing guest that was recommended to us by Eustacia Cutler, and she's going to be talking with us about a program that her university in Michigan, I think it's Michigan University, a program that they do that has young people on the spectrum come in and they partner with them. They have this massive program that's very stringent, but it gives them support so that they can do college successfully. They've had great luck with helping people to get through college and get through all parts of it, the living, the educational part, and the social part of college. So I'm very excited to talk with her about that. And Eustacia Cutler was like, you've got to have this woman on because she's the one who's getting it done for college. Any of you who have college age, or if you're college age and found that it was difficult, you gotta be here to talk about that. And then I know that we have Dr. Grant Bichet on, and we have a very full week. I know that we're going to be talking with somebody in Australia about a program, a physical fitness program that they've designed for people on the autism spectrum. And of course, I can't think what else, but I will tell you that Thursday night, we're about to unveil today that a week from last night, Thursday night, we're going to be doing a special town hall. And Bonnie Yates will be our special guest. And the topic is the state of special education. So much has happened in the last 2 weeks about special education and what the expectations are. Betsy DeVos was given the ability in that whole big push through the stimulus package, she was given the right to put some special education, to decide what was going to happen with COVID and all this stuff that people have missed. And apparently she's come down with 2 very specific things. Be very interesting. I can't wait to hear Bonnie talk about what is happening and what is going to happen as a result of what Betsy DeVos said. So it's all up to the minute, right? So that'll be Thursday night, and
Great.
we'll be telling you guys all about that as it gets closer.
Okay, great. Looking
And it'll
forward
be
to that.
interactive. It'll be interactive. People will be able to ask Bonnie questions in real time. So that's next week. And my next
Looks
door
like
neighbor.
we're out of time. Looks
We
like
are
we're
out
out
of
of
time.
time.
We're way out of time, but a happy Mother's Day to everybody. Sending you
Happy
lots of
Mother's
love.
Day.
And I will talk to you soon, Nancy.
All
and
right,
for all
Shannon.
of you, we'll be back on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.